Is that all you've been doing all day? Sitting on your butt on the couch on your computer?
Yeah?
You know you could have been cleaning up the house while I was at work.
r/EntitledParents. Our first story we'll be reading today, entitled Dad Expects Me to Basically Be His Slave While I'm Visiting, gets put in his place by Mom, from user Warhawk Iron Man. After that, entitled Family Attempts to Dog Nap My Sister's Service Dog, from user Iron Potato Man. Thank you so much to our authors for letting us read your stories, and if you're an author who would like to hear your stories on the channel, please submit them to the r/Mr. Reddit subreddit. And welcome to the newest members of the Re-Army, Evan, Cindy, and Grim. And if you're new, join the Re-Army by subscribing and turning on notifications so you don't miss a thing. Entitled Dad Expects Me to Basically Be His Slave While I'm Visiting gets put in his place by Mom. Hey guys, long-time reader, second time posting a story on Reddit. First time posting on this sub. Hopefully I got it right this time. It's a bit of a long one, so I apologize in advance, keeping it family-friendly as possible. This happened a little over 3 years ago, but it's still fresh in my mind because it still gets me angry to this day. We've got the entitled Dad, we've got Mom, and me. Well, that should be obvious. First, some backstory. And yes, the entitled dad in question is in fact my own. I lived with my parents for most of my life. I was a bit of a deadbeat for a while, I'm not gonna lie. Maybe I'm wrong for thinking this, but that doesn't excuse my dad's behavior when it came to how he treated me. Now, I'm from Texas. I was raised to respect your elders and don't talk back. But I was also raised not to take any BS from anyone. This will come into play later, because at this time, I didn't have anywhere else to go, so I didn't really have a choice. In 2013, I finally moved out of my parents' house for good to live with my now wife. I won't specify where for privacy's sake. Let's just say I now live far enough away it requires a 2-day bus ride just to visit. After 3 years away, I was getting a little homesick and I wanted to take a trip home to go see my family and my friends. So during a video chat with my parents, I asked if they had the money to buy me a bus ticket so I could come down and visit. They said sure, and I made plans with them and my friends down there. My mom even offered to throw me a party since I was only staying for 2 weeks and my birthday was the month after. 2 days and a long, boring bus ride later, I made it. I had even brought my PS4 with me so I could play some games while I was there. I'm a second-generation gamer. Both my parents are gamers as well as stream, because they had the fastest internet and they told me I could. My dad immediately fell back into his old habit of basically trying to make me do everything around the house. I didn't have a problem with it when I was living with them because, again, I was 23 and living with my parents. By this point, though, I was 25, married. I had gotten married the year before, was just visiting, and more to the point, didn't live there anymore. I basically told him as politely as I could that it wasn't my job to clean up his mess or help him with whatever project he decided to start while I was there. Needless to say, this did not sit well with him. But what was he going to do? Kick me out? One particular day, he came home from work to find me on my laptop, which I had brought with me so I could video chat with my wife while I was there. He basically threw a temper tantrum.
Is that all you've been doing all day? Sitting on your butt on the couch on your computer?
Yeah? Thinking he had asked me to do something and I had forgotten it.
You know you could have been cleaning up the house while I was at work.
I've dealt with this for about a week by this point. I did clean up. I cleaned any mess I made. I shouldn't have to clean up you or anyone else's mess around here because A, I'm only visiting, and B, I don't live here.
Well, you could have said, you know, Dad's at work all day, and when he comes home, he's exhausted. I'm gonna clean up the house for him.
Keep in mind, he had 2 other kids still living at home at this point, both at an age that shouldn't have a problem doing chores. Now, I would also like to point out that I had no problem cleaning up if I had been asked to. My mom had asked me a few times while I was there to do some cleaning because my sister, one of the kids still living at home, routinely left her baby at my parents' house while she went to go do God knows what with her baby daddy. My mom basically just told me to ignore him, so I did, thinking that was the end of it. Boy, was I wrong. Remember that party I mentioned earlier? The one that I had been told was specifically for me? Yeah, turns out my dad had turned it into a party for himself. His birthday was the day I arrived. We planned it that way on purpose, so you'd think the party would be either that day or a day or two after, right? Wrong. They planned it a week into my visit. So basically, what happened was he took a party that was specifically stated to be for me and made it all about himself. I wasn't allowed to invite any of my friends or anything. To make matters worse, he took my phone during the party and told me I wasn't allowed on it. I was done. Another thing I should bring up is my friends. I made it clear before I even came to visit that I would also be hanging out with my friends while I was there. My dad did not like this because it cut into time I could have been spending being at his beck and call. Now, when I still lived with them, my parents were the type, as long as I told them who I was with and when, if I'd be home that night, they didn't care what I did from age 18. So, thinking because I no longer lived there, I didn't have to do that anymore, I basically came and went as I pleased. I still had the courtesy to let my mom know where I would be, since I was staying with them after all. My mom told me that while she appreciated the thought, I didn't live there anymore and was under no obligation to tell her where I was going or who I would be with. My dad, on the other hand, well, I'm sure you get the picture by now. The straw that broke the camel's back was the day before I was set to leave to go back home. My dad had basically been spending the day forcing me to help him with everything he could think of, despite me telling him I had made plans with my friend Heath, who I had only hung out with once during the entire 2 weeks I was there.
No, you've spent this whole time hanging out with your friends when you're supposed to be spending time with us. You're staying home today and helping me with stuff around the house. Next time you want to come down to visit, have one of your friends pay for your ticket if you're going to do that.
I basically ignored him, and my mom told me not to worry about it. When Heath showed up, I basically dropped what I was doing and left. As I was walking away, my dad went on a rant about how I was supposed to be spending this time with my mom and not my friends. Keep in mind that despite being told I wasn't required to stay at home at any point, I had been spending nights and early mornings with my mom when she couldn't sleep and came into the living room where I was sleeping to watch TV. I have insomnia, so most of the time I was either awake or not asleep enough that she would be bothering me. I also spent her days off with her unless one of my friends wanted to hang out. I also, despite what he would have you believe, did not leave every day to hang out with my friends. My friends are busy people, either having jobs, kids, or in a couple of cases, both. So I regularly spent my days at the house either on my PS4 or my computer. My dad's attempt to guilt me into staying because I hadn't spent enough time with my mom was the last straw for her. I had left by this point, but the look I saw her give him before I left told me she was about to tear into him. I even told my friend Heath this. He knows all about it. From what she told me when I got back, the conversation went something like this.
What the heck are you talking about?
He needs to be spending time here, not hanging out with his friends.
He spent most of his days here. I know because when I come home,
She got home before him.
he's usually sitting on the couch on his computer or PS4. And you trying to drag me into it was low.
Well, he needs to be helping around the house. I can't do it by myself.
He doesn't live here. You have 2 kids who still live here. Make them get off their butts and do chores.
I didn't hear a peep out of him about hanging out with my friends for the rest of the day or the next before I left. Entitled Dad expected me to be his slave for 2 weeks when I came to visit. He tried to use my mom as blackmail. He got put in his place by my mom. Next up, we've got Entitled Family attempts to dog nap my sister's service dog. So, this is the second of my 3 encounters with entitled parents that relate to my little sister's service dog. Sorry it took so long to get out. More issues with my mom have risen lately, and I am a single potato caring for 2 needy tater tots. I do have 2 other stories. The first that explains how I came into custody of my beautiful little sisters after my parents were allowing the elder of the 2 to be hurt for 6 years, and the other a brief encounter with an entitled parent who didn't believe my sister needs a service dog because she has mental illnesses. I'll link them at the bottom for convenience. I'm also far from the best storyteller, as well as writing in general, so bear with me. It's also long. I'll be using the same false names for my sisters that I've used for all of my other stories. Amy, who is 17, and Liza, who is 8. I'm their elder brother, and I'm 29, and this all takes place in Australia. Now, as briefly mentioned in my other entitled Mom story, I do my best to get Amy outside for at least an hour a day, and this normally involves taking her service dog for a leisure walk as a family, which she enjoys and is accustomed to at this point. On this particular day, a new playground had just opened up nearby, so I thought it might be fun to take my girls somewhere different, and as Amy likes to play fetch with Lickety Split, her service dog, who is a cross between a purebred German Shepherd and a mutt, I made sure to look into the rules regarding off-lead dogs. As a service dog, she's pretty much allowed everywhere if she has a lead and a vest on and isn't disturbing the peace. There was a nearby field where off-lead dogs were permitted, but the play area around the playground only allows on-lead dogs, which is normal for my area. So, armed with doggy doo-doo bags, sunscreen, water, and Lickety Split's vest and lead, we drive down to the new park. New areas do make Amy anxious, so we walk around a bit to help her get an understanding of where everything is. And during this time, Lickety Split has her vest and lead on, dutifully walking at Amy's pace like the best doggo she is. As there are quite a few little kids around, and we don't want them distracting her, but most seem to understand what Lickety Split's vest means. However, one kid in particular, whom we'll dub Little Entitled Girl, does approach and ask to play with Lickety Split. Amy has selective mutism. She can't talk in most situations. I take the duty to explain that Lickety Split is working right now and can't be distracted, but I point to the field and say we might be playing there later if Amy feels up to it. She normally doesn't mind other people throwing the ball, as long as they don't actually touch Lickety Split or her. Little Entitled Girl huffs and says that dogs are for playing, not working. I ask her if she's ever seen police dogs on TV or anything, to which she hesitantly replies yes, and I explain those are a different type of working dog. Lickety Split's job is to take care of my sister because she gets frightened very easy, and her dog makes sure she doesn't get hurt if she gets scared. The Little Entitled Girl then turns to Amy, who's getting a bit fidgety and keeps tugging on my shirt, her silent signal that she wants to move away from this, while Lickety Split is in her alert stance, when she has a feeling something around could trigger Amy or cause her harm. The Little Entitled Girl then throws her arms up and shouts, "Boo!" which of course causes her to jump and hide behind me, starting to cry. Amy, even to this day, is very timid and doesn't cope well in strange environments with loud noises or sudden movements towards her. The Little Entitled Girl then starts laughing at Amy and calling her names. Liza, who is very protective of her big sister, then pushes the girl and scoffs her for being so mean, and I decide that we've all had enough of this girl and hurry my sisters along so we can find somewhere for Amy to calm down in peace. We find an area out of sight from the Little Entitled Girl, and I sit Amy down on a bench in the shade where I can work towards calming her down before deciding if we should just go home. Thankfully, she wasn't too bad as far as her anxiety attacks go, just breathing heavily, hot, and she was crying quietly. I asked her if she wanted to go home, but she declined and asked if we could just stay away from the Little Entitled Girl because Liza still wanted to play in the playground and said she didn't want Lickety Split off her lead. I'm hesitant, but agree, knowing that because Amy is trying to overcome her anxiety, she does sometimes want to push herself out of her comfort zone, and I would just have to keep a close eye on her and make sure she isn't pushing herself too far. The next little while is quiet. Liza playing in the playground, while Amy and I sit in the shade, while Lickety Split laying beneath the bench and Amy reading a book. As you'd expect, more kids came to ask to give pets to our dog, but I politely turned them away with no issues. No Little Entitled Girl. Or so I thought. Little Entitled Girl comes running up to Amy and me with her mother in tow, jabbing her finger at me while blabbering about animal abuse. Now, most of my attention was on my sister rather than what this lady was saying, so the conversation isn't exactly word for word. This also took place months ago. The mother looks me up and down as if I had no business being in the area. My suburb is the next one over and considered slightly higher class, and asks if Lickety Split is my dog. I explain how Lickety Split is in my name, but she is registered as Amy's service dog. In Australia, if you are under 18, parents or guardians are considered the owner of dogs, even if a registered service dog is serving a minor. When she turns 18, Lickety Split ownership will be transferred to Amy. The parent gave me a look as if I had hit her child. She then snarls at me something along the lines of,
How dare you make an innocent animal work and brainwash it into being able to do nothing more than follow your demand?
I just shrug and tell her that she's entitled to that opinion and ask her to leave as she was upsetting Amy. She then demands that I hand the dog over to her, as a dog as spectacular looking as mine should not be forced into slavery. I give her a simple nope and wave her off. She leaves, surprisingly, with her daughter and complaining about how she wants a dog that is well behaved enough to sit like Lickety Split is. About half an hour passes and we were packing up to leave. Amy quietly asks if we can throw the ball just a little for Lickety Split because she doesn't feel it's fair for her dog to miss out on the fun. So we head back to the field, remove Lickety Split's lead and vest after checking little entitled girl or her mother weren't around. Side note, her dog tags also say that she is a service dog, as well as have my name, address, and phone number on them, and this will be important later. And we begin a small session of fetch with Lickety Split, taking turns throwing the ball as we usually do. Now, the park is set up, so the field is right next to the car park with a row of bushes separating the two, and the area we were standing in had a few trees shading some picnic tables. As Liza is taking her turn to throw the ball, it hits a tree and bounces through the bushes. Lickety chases after it, and I tell my sisters to stay put while I follow just to make sure she doesn't end up on the road. Despite Liza's throw not being too hard, Lickety Split wasn't directly behind the bushes like I thought she would be. In fact, I couldn't immediately find her after passing the bushes. I looked around for a moment before hearing Lickety Split's distressed barking and bolt into the car park, finding a family of 5 attempting to wrestle Lickety Split into the back of their car. The family, including little entitled girl, her mother, father, a boy, most likely middle child, and an older girl, appeared to be the oldest. The father was holding Lickety Split's jaw shut while the children were attempting to move her into the trunk of their car. My dog was not making it easy for them, and since the mother seemed to refuse to get close, and the father was fighting to keep her head under control, they were struggling quite a bit. I yelled at them to let Lickety Split go, and several things happened in quick succession. The entitled father lost his grip on Lickety Split's head, while the 2 girls jumped back, leaving brother holding her hind legs off of the ground. Lickety Split barked several times before the entitled father again tried to hold her muzzle, which she responded to by biting his arm and flinging herself at the boy, snapping at him until she managed to land a bite on his ankle and bolt to my side. I grabbed her collar and yelled at the family for attempting to steal my dog. At this time, a security man arrived, explaining how someone had reported an incident and asked what was going on. At this time, Amy and Liza had also come looking for me, most likely hearing the barking and yelling, as well as just wondering why I was taking so long. Amy was on the brink of a panic attack, and Lickety strained against my grip to get to Amy, so I let her go, telling Amy and Liza to quickly put her vest and lead back on. The father is now yelling at security about how they had found what they assumed was an abandoned dog that they were planning on taking to a shelter to adopt the poor thing, when I appeared and beat the dog until she was so scared it bit him and his son, and he now demanded the dog to be put down immediately. Security looks over at Lickety Split, who was taking a defensive stance in front of my sisters and snarling at the family before looking at me and asking what my side of what happened was. Thinking this could take a while, I asked him to hold on a moment while I moved my sisters and Lickety Split off of the road and into the shade. Amy is having a panic attack at the prospect of her dog being put down and sobbing for me to protect her dog. At this point, I just wanted to get her home, where it was much easier calming her down, so I turned back to security and the family and explained the misthrown ball, how I had come to make sure my dog didn't end up on the road, and how I found the family attempting to steal my sister's service dog when the entitled mom interrupted, screeching how,
"That's proof he abuses the dog. No dog should be made to work."
Security then pauses before he states his grandma has a guide dog because she's going blind. Pause from the family. Security turns to the kids and asks if they were trying to move the dog in the car. The older girls confirm this. Security then asks if they waited to see if anyone claimed the dog. The girl shook her head, and the entitled mom then claimed the dog had no tags. I point out Lickety Split's beautifully handmade bright purple and blue collar, stating it has my phone number and address on it, before asking security if I could take my sisters home. I didn't even care about pressing charges for the attempted dog napping. I just wanted to get Amy home, as she was really struggling to calm down. Thankfully, security understood, took my details, and explained this would most likely go to the police, as my dog had bitten 2 people. I wasn't too worried about this, as my state's law says that if a dog bites or attacks someone, it would be put down unless it was provoked to do so. He would make sure to save all security footage as evidence, as he could clearly see I cared for my dog and family. He let me go, but warned me that Lickety Split must be kept in my name, and her residence can't change, or it would have worse legal repercussions. I assured him we weren't going anywhere before ushering my sisters to my car to get home. I left the car park and drove to another at a sports field close by before trying to calm Amy down, going through our normal method of grounding her before giving cuddles and talking her down from her panic attack. She's still shaky when I pulled away, but I wanted to get her home where she could lie down and relax, so she just cuddled the toy she had brought and her dog the whole way home while crying softly. Amy normally sits in the back seat with Lickety Split and Liza no matter where we are going. We ended up ordering from a restaurant, Amy's favorite, for dinner and watching a movie together, snuggled up on the pull-out lounge. The girls both fell asleep there, and I let them be. This was before Amy was back in school, but I gave the next off from her tutoring and worked from home since she was still upset. The police did get in contact with me about Lickety Split biting 2 people, but confirmed they had seen the security footage and agreed that the situation had provoked Lickety Split to do so. There was also a whole court procedure where the family was adamant the attack was unprovoked and they were just trying to help what they thought was a stray dog. But one of the cameras had caught a very clear display of Lickety Split's collar, which has my phone number. Not to mention, Entitled Mom and Little Entitled Girl had seen me and my sister twice that day, which cameras had also caught. The parents were fined and given community service, and since I just wanted it to be over, I didn't press further, but we haven't been back to that park since.
Turn on channel notifications, or my family and I are going to take your pet.
And congrats to our Regenerals of the day, Jack0493, Corsi Husky, and Pippi Longstockings. That's all for now, but don't be blue. I'll be back soon with more stories for you. Remember to listen to Mr. Reddit every night, so your dreams will be wonderful like you are and bright.